Hi, my name is James. Welcome to King's Fine Woodworking. Today I'm going to cover the design and build of a couple of different styles of push sticks. If you like the videos we produce, we'd really appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button down below. Push sticks are a really important piece of shop safety equipment, and most push sticks don't work quite like this. This one gives you the ability to push down, to apply torque in a downward position to keep the wood against the table saw surface. Not doing this and just holding the wood at the edge, like a lot of push sticks are, invites that to sometimes run up on the blade and the piece of wood can flip back towards you. But when you're able to torque down on the handle and push the wood down flat against the surface of the saw, that's a thing that just can't happen. It's a much safer type of a push stick. Let's take a look at the other push stick that we have. But first, this push stick. This one's designed with the catch right at the end, which is pretty typical, and allows you to push the wood, right through the blade there. And the second style has the catch much further forward. You see the difference there, and so this is we call this an extended reach push stick. So some people, like my daughter, she's too short to hold a traditional push stick and push the wood all the way past the end of the saw if need be, but with the extended reach one, it's really no problem at all. You can reach much further, but it functions exactly the same. We still have the ability to torque the wood down flat to the surface, and now we just have the extended ability to push it a little bit beyond the surface. And those are the two styles that I'm going to show you how to build today. And I think this design is so important. We're just going to give the plans away. Anybody who wants them can have them for free. You can download them. It'll include the template so you can draw them. And it will even include the CNC files if you want to cut them out on the CNC. And I think, and you have my blessing if you want to take and make these and produce them and sell them and make a profit. You do whatever you like. I think it's a safe style push stick. I think everybody should have a push stick that's similar. I have seen similar ones out there, but unfortunately I've seen a lot more of the older, more dangerous designs as well. So this is the ones that we are going to make. I'm going to make it out of one of them out of Bolivian Rosewood. And when we make something for our shop, like a shop tool or a shop jig, I like to make it out of some really nice wood because it's something we're going to look at for a long time. So these are the templates that if you get the plans, you download it. This will print on a standard piece of paper. And if you don't have a printer, we will sell the printed templates. Those do cost some money because we have a printer print them for us. But if you download it yourself, we print these on just standard paper, and you'll cut the templates out. Not very hard. Pretty straightforward. You could use measurements, but I think templates just make this job so much faster. We use templates for our Adirondack chairs as well. And you'll just put them on the wood and you'll trace them out. So that's pretty simple there. After this, we generally take our curved pieces over to the bandsaw to cut them out. But if you don't have a bandsaw, a jigsaw works just fine too. Even if the cut's a little rougher, it doesn't make any difference because we're going to sand it. So on the bandsaw, I would cut it so that I leave the line behind so that I can sand it smooth after, sand it right down to the line after I've cut it out. So it has a nice, smooth, uniform curve and a nice, smooth, uniform finish. And one of the best tools that I have found for that is this rigid oscillating spindle sander. I think you get these at Home Depot. There are probably other places you can get them, but it's great. It's a couple $100 for the tool, but it just does an amazing job. So that is one of the side pieces. You can also, like I mentioned, you can cut these things out on a CNC. And I am going to include the CNC files also for free. I think the more hands that you can get these push sticks into, the safer woodworking will be. And this is real simple. You can set it up so you can cut two at a time out of a piece of wood. It's got little tabs, so you have to cut through the tabs at the end there. And then when you're done with that, you'll just router the tabs off. There's just a little flush trim router bit. You can use that to trim the tabs off. And I make these router bases for all trim routers pretty much. There's a link to them on the website. And they make for a really handy little compact router table. So if you would like to get something like that for your trim router, it just makes it really safe and easy to route small things. And then we're going to jump into the center part of these push sticks. The first one there I did was the outer parts, and then this is the center part. Center part's usually 3/4 of an inch. This wood that I have is skip planed. The first one was Osage orange. This one is quilted, or not quilted, it looks like curly maple. Striped maple looks like tiger maple there. It's called curly maple. And we'll flatten one edge of it and then joint the other side. I get it down to about 3/4 of an inch, but if it's a little thicker or a little thinner, it doesn't make any difference. Kind of use what you have in the shop. You can even use plywood, no problem. I'm going to jump back to that little router that I've got, the router base that goes onto a trim router. And having a small router table like this makes it pretty easy to route small parts. Now there's still an element of safety here that you have to be concerned with. I don't put the router on full speed, and I kind of go slow and careful, hold the wood carefully, but it's about the safest way you can route a really small piece. This is the catch that we were just routing, and we'll drill some holes in the catch. And we'll translate those holes over to the center part there so that we can put some bolts in and hold that to the base, or hold that to the push stick. That's about how that goes. And I generally put that in my vise, or some way to just have some way to hold it, and I use a doweling jig, which helps you line up with the center point of the line that you made. And we drill it out to a size that's the required size to put in a 3/8 inch bolt. And then we'll tap the hole. A regular tap works. This is a tap made for a drill. Now I'll put a link to these in the description down below if you don't have these. But if you got regular taps, that'll work too. And since we're kind of going into end grain, I like to strengthen up those threads with some thin CA. Just pour the thin CA down. It gets down on all over the threads and just toughens them up quite a bit. There's the parts for the one with extended reach, and here's the parts for the standard unit. And they go together pretty simply. And I'll show you how we glue them together as well. Very similar to that, the purple gets raised a little bit higher, but you'll see that in a moment. And this one's even easier to put together because they are all flush on the bottom. And there's the bolts. You can use nylon bolts, you can use steel bolts because they're way up out of reach of the table saw blade. If you were to cut into those, you'd be cutting your push stick almost in half. So this one, in order for me to mark the holes, I'll go ahead and put the catch, which is the big L-shaped piece of plywood there. Plywood's the best for that, by the way. I'll put the catch in place and then drill the hole all the way through. That way I know they're going to be aligned perfectly. And then I'll run the tap through the push stick portion. And I'm going to do the same thing here. We're going to stiffen up those threads. Strengthen up those threads by putting some thin CA glue. That thin CA glue is like water or even thinner. Now I've got to make the hole in the catch wider because I want the bolt to go in through it easily. I don't want to have to thread it through this. I want it to just slide into that. That way it'll pull this snugly against the push stick. And that's how that will fit. And now I've just chosen the best side, and I'll write inside on the sides I'm going to put glue on. I want the best side out. They both looked pretty good, but I did the same on both. I marked the inside. And that helps me know which side to route as well, because I want a curve on this, but I only want the curve on the outside part. That way when these things sandwich that centerboard, they've got a nice curve to them like that. It'll be the same with this. That thin piece of purple has actually sat for several days and gotten nice and purple, so when I'm cutting into it again, I'm cutting down below the part that's oxidized a bit. But we'll let that sit too before we finish it, so we get everything back to nice and purple. Purple heart will just naturally turn purple on its own in the presence of ultraviolet radiation, which is like sunlight or bright lights. I'll give it a light sand over. Not going to spend a ton of time on it. And I'm kind of marking the location of where it goes, so I know where to apply the glue. The front part lines up with the bottom, which you can't quite see because it's facing away from the camera, and which means the outside part, which we're looking at here, doesn't match up the whole way perfectly because it's kind of a design element it's not really supposed to. It's going to match like that. And then I'm going to run the roundover bit on the center part of the push stick here. And I'll take it all the way down to that line on both sides. We don't want to go too far, but just something to give it a nice look when they all come together. I use a small radius rounder for this, maybe just a 1/4 inch. You could use a 3/8, but I think 1/4 inch is plenty. And then I'll just blend it in here to with the edge that I didn't run the roundover on, because I stopped that roundover at some point. That's sort of what that looks like there. I think it's a pretty nice look. If we can get the camera to focus, there we go. And there's all the components. Now it's time to glue this up. So I like to put glue on both pieces, both sides, like I do with pretty much everything I build. And remember this, for the extended reach push stick, this part lines up in the front. The outside lines up with the base in the very front of the push stick. That allows the catch to stick below all of that. You see the room for the catch to go in there. Front part is lining up flush with the bottom. And then we'll clamp that down. We'll get it clamped everywhere nice and tight. And we're going to clean off the glue and then let that sit overnight. I think I did mention that is Osage orange in the center and then Purple Heart on the outsides. And this is our Brazilian Rosewood. We'll get it all glued up. Now the whole entire piece of these two are flush together at the bottom, because the design difference here, the catch is just at the back and hangs down from the back of the whole push stick. So it's a little bit different in design. We'll clamp that up. We'll clean off the glue, let it sit overnight. Once it's done, we'll take the clamps off. We'll give it a light sanding. And this one here, if the edges don't line up perfectly, you can just fix that real easy. At the front, I think they should line up. That's part of the design. So I'll jump back over to the sander here. And I'll get that front part also sanded flush, and that's what it should look like that. And if there's any burn marks, I like to sand those off. Some people don't seem to mind those, but I don't like them. If this one doesn't line up perfectly, you can take it over to the jointer, because the whole base should be flush and uniformly even. So just keep it nice and snug against the side, against the fence of the jointer, and one very light pass. The grain's all running the same way, so it'll joint just fine, and that one's done. Now I'll put the catch in. If for some reason there's misalignment here, you can just take a file and you can extend one of these holes like I needed to do for the bottom one here, because I didn't get a perfect alignment when I drilled the holes, but now I will. And then you can use a steel bolt or a nylon bolt. Even if I use nylon, sometimes I like to take a steel bolt. This is a 3/8 by 16 bolt. I like to send it in and out a couple of times to make sure the threads aren't too tight, so that I can put the nylon bolts in by hand. And then we'll just give them some very light torque with a wrench to hold them in. Nylon bolts are because somebody, I don't know, a couple of people complained when I first built these and said, oh my gosh, you can't have metal over your table saw because your blade's going to go through it. In reality, it's not. So you can spend the buck on the nylon bolts, or you can not worry about it and just use a steel bolt, and just don't raise your blade up and run the push stick right over it. You're fine. All right. So remember, once again, you have that downward push. This is what I showed you at the very beginning, because using a push stick like this can be dangerous. The board can come up on the blade and come at you. With the downward push, we've got that eliminated. And it's exactly the same with the extended reach push stick. We've got the same downward push ability, but the catch is much further forward. So if you're a shorter person, you have the ability to reach much further across the table saw without leaning over the table saw. There they are. All done. We're going to put a little bit of lacquer on them. Lacquer is the easiest thing to repair. If it gets scratched or damaged, you just can sand a little bit off and then re-lacquer that portion. And that's going to do it for the video. Once again, we'd appreciate it if you took the time to subscribe, and thanks for watching.